Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome everyone to today's explainer. So picture this. You've just done a quick grocery run. You walk back to your car and bam, there's a mysterious mark right on your door. Yeah, we all know that sinking feeling, right? But here's the thing. How do you actually talk about it naturally in English? Today we're mastering everyday conversational vocabulary for car troubles in parking lots. Because whether you're dealing with an insurance agent or just venting to a friend, picking the exact right words is literally the difference between keeping the situation totally chill and causing a massive panic.
To get us there, here is a quick look at today's agenda. We're starting with common parking lot troubles, then moving into paint damage expressions and body dent expressions. After that, we'll cover phrases for minor collisions and wrap it all up with a practical conversation situation. Section 1. Parking lot troubles, the everyday nuisance.
So you know the exact scenario we're talking about, right? You're out shopping, maybe it's a crazy crowded mall on a weekend, you get back to your car and you realize someone parked way too close, or a shopping cart just went totally rogue. Now you've got damage. Which brings up a super important question for anyone wanting to sound natural in English. How do you accurately describe this without freaking people out? Think about it. If you call your best friend and say, "My car was hit," or "I had an accident," their brain immediately goes to the worst-case scenario. They'll think you're in the hospital. Native English speakers actually use a highly specific scale of vocabulary to describe damage. Mastering this scale isn't just about passing a vocabulary test. It's an absolutely fantastic way to build cultural connections in everyday conversations.
Section 2. Paint damage expressions. Keeping it on the surface.
All right, let's start at the very bottom of our damage scale. It's really important to know the difference between a scuff and a scratch. A scuff is honestly the best case scenario. It's incredibly minor. Basically, it's just a mark sitting right on top of your car's paint. Like if someone opens their door into yours, but you can literally just wipe the mark right off with your thumb, that's a scuff. A scratch, on the other hand, is a completely different story. That is actual physical damage cutting into the paint itself. It's deeper, and it is definitely not going to just rub off.
So, how do you actually use this in real life? Well, if a friend points out a mark on your car, you probably want to downgrade the situation so nobody stresses out, right? You can just casually say, "Oh, I think it's just a scuff." Adding that tiny word, "just," is a brilliant conversational strategy. It immediately tells the other person, "Hey, no big deal, everything is totally fine, it'll wipe right off."
Section 3. Body dent expressions when the metal is affected. Moving up the escalation scale, our first word here is ding, spelled D-I-N-G. Now this is a wonderfully versatile little word. You might actually already know it as the sound a bell makes. If you've ever watched a classic TV game show, you know that when a contestant guesses the right answer, the bell goes ding, ding, ding. But when we're talking about cars, a ding refers to minor damage or tiny mark. And what's great is you can use it as a noun, like "I have a ding on my car," or as an action verb, like "Ugh, I accidentally dinged my mirror on the garage wall." Now the difference between a ding and our next term is absolutely crucial. A ding is just a small mark or a really tiny depression. But a dent is way more serious. A dent means the actual metal of the car has been physically pushed in. The actual shape of the car has changed. If you get a dent, you are probably heading to the body shop, and it might cost you a solid $1,000 to fix. So if you have a massive crater in your door, calling it a ding would be the understatement of the century. That, my friends, is definitely a dent.
Section 4. Minor collision phrases, small accidents.
Okay, the ultimate phrase you need to know in this category is fender bender. A fender bender is a minor accident where absolutely everyone is completely okay. To really get why we say this, just think about the anatomy of a car. The fender is that specific metal or plastic body panel that frames the wheel well. So a fender bender simply means that this particular, relatively inexpensive part of the car got bent. But why do native speakers love this phrase so much? Why not just say accident? Well, because the word accident sounds terrifying. If you walk into a room and say, "Tanya got into an accident today," her friends and family are going to completely panic. But if you say, "Tanya got into a fender bender," everyone immediately exhales, they know she is perfectly safe, nobody is hurt, and the only real victim is just some metal or plastic. Plus, casually swapping stories about past fender benders is a surprisingly great way to bond over shared, frustrating life experiences.
Oh, and here's a really fun cultural bonus from our source material. Whenever Americans talk about car damage or accidents, they get super superstitious. If you're ever bragging and say something like, "I've never been in a serious accident," you must immediately follow it up by saying, "knock on wood," and literally tap your knuckles on a wooden table. It's just a fun, quirky superstition we use to prevent bad luck, or to keep from jinxing ourselves right after saying something positive.
Section 5. Practice conversation situation, putting it together.
Let's see how all this builds into a real scenario with a rapid-fire practice conversation. Picture two friends, person A and person B. They just walked out of a store and are walking up to their car in the parking lot. Person A sees the damage first and gets that initial wave of shock. They say, "Whoa, looks like someone hit your car." Notice that past tense verb, hit. It's simple, it's direct, and it highlights that a real impact happened.
Then person B walks up, obviously hoping for the best. They immediately try to verbally downgrade the situation to keep everyone calm. "Oh, I think it's a scuff. I think it can come off." You can almost hear them crossing their fingers, right? They're just praying it's only surface paint that can be wiped away.
But then, person A looks a little closer and realizes the severity of it. "Oh no, but there's a dent in the door." Notice how the tone escalates here. It is not just the paint anymore. The actual structural metal is pushed in.
Finally, person B accepts the harsh reality, and they use our new vocabulary word as an action verb. Yikes. Someone definitely dinged it and just left. This right here perfectly captures the absolute frustration of a minor hit and run in a parking lot.
To wrap up the conversation, person A relates to the situation by casually bringing up a past experience. "I mean, I've been in fender benders before, but I never had this happen." They use that idiom so smoothly to explain that while they've definitely had minor collisions, they've never dealt with a parking lot mystery quite like this.
So, let's lock this into memory. Here is your ultimate damage escalation scale. 1. Scuff, a mark right on top that wipes off. 2. Scratch, actual damage cutting down into the paint. 3. Ding, a minor mark or a really tiny dent. 4. Dent, when the actual metal is seriously pushed in. And 5. Fender bender, a minor collision where everyone is totally safe. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. Remember, the vocabulary you choose completely dictates how people react to your story. By using these precise words, you're not just describing damage accurately, you are going to sound incredibly natural. So my final question to you is this. The next time you see a mysterious mark on a car, will you know exactly how to describe it? Go out there, practice these phrases, and build some awesome conversational connections. And, knock on wood, you won't actually need to use them too often. Thanks for hanging out and learning with me today.
Got it! What's up? Catch up! Aha!